it's all the same thing. And eventually, as we get older or as we experience more, we begin to realize that it's all the same thing. It's starting something new. It's the same thing as already doing something you've done before. And I know this might sound confusing or even counterintuitive to an extent, but it really is all the same thing. Is when you're first experiencing something, you have to go through that phase of not knowing. You have to go through that phase of frustration, of ignorance, of possibly even depression because of how dark it can get. And when we're becoming a new person, especially, it gets dark because it's lonely. You have to do it by yourself. And you get to a point where you are alone and it feels like there's no one around. It's like no one understands you. And even your closest friends don't seem to be as close to you while you're on this journey. But that's the whole point, right? Because at the end of the day, how are you becoming someone new if you're not changing everything about you? And I know you don't have to change everything about you, but at times it is necessary. And it's lonely, but to stick through it is the most important thing because it's gonna get blinding and it seems as though it's almost in vanity everything you're doing, but it's not. You have to realize that you must keep going. And the best way is to set out a plan. And when you set out a plan, you have to sit down and you just have to eliminate all distractions. It's a requirement. It's the only way that your brain is going to actually be able to have clarity, to think clearly about everything that needs to be done for your benefit. If you're constantly being distracted with this, with that, with all these screens in front of you, with all this clutter, with your phone, you're never going to be able to figure out a plan. If you sit down and you wonder at the end of the night, why do I keep repeating everything over and over again? Why do these mistakes keep happening? Why does this seem like I haven't even gone that far? It feels like I'm taking one step forward and 10 steps back, and I'm ending up in the same position, if not even worse, every single time. And I'm in a dark hole. And I understand that feeling because I've made mistakes so many times and I've done the same thing over and over and over again. And I ask myself, what am I doing wrong? What can I change? And then I realize that it's about becoming more and more self-aware of yourself, of realizing why you do what you do and how you act. See, because every individual is different. So it might be that one person's advice will affect one person a certain way and another person a whole different way. And the reason for that is because everyone is an individual. Everyone is unique in their own way. But in order for us to understand what is the best path for ourselves, for you, is you have to understand what is it that I do? How is it that I act? When is the cycles? What are the seasons for me, right? Because there's a season for everything. There's a time for everything. There's a time when we're extremely motivated and when we're not extremely motivated. And there's a lot of factors that play into it. But the more we understand ourselves, the easier it gets to actually face these things. Because if, as I said from the beginning, it's all the same thing. It's all the same thing. It might be a new experience. It might be a new environment. But at the end of the day, it's the same thing. If you know yourself, you've already won, regardless of how new the experience is. So you just have to first understand, who am I as a person? And the best way to figure out who you are is to see how you are after certain things. So set a goal for yourself, a simple goal or a hard goal. I recommend doing both and see how you act after. On the simple goal, let's just say it could be washing dishes, right? You come home, you wash dishes. It's not something you want to do, but it's inconvenient, but it's necessary and it's a responsible thing to do. So set the goal, wash the dishes. How is it that you act after you wash dishes? Do you usually sit down? Do you hop on your phone? Or while you're washing dishes, are you hopping on your phone? Are you instantly stimulating yourself? Now set a hard goal. And after you do that hard goal, what do? Are you resting for days upon days after? How are you acting? Are you now doing the exact opposite of whatever that goal is because you feel like you've achieved it? You deserve this break. You deserve this dopamine or this dessert or this treat. Let's just say, for example, if it's a weight goal, right? You lost 20 pounds. You've been eating healthy for weeks. And now you achieved what you wanted to achieve. So I'm going to give myself a dessert, which is rightfully so. But how do you act? And the more self-aware you become with these kinds of things, the better it is you know how to approach it the next time on a new whole scenario, because it's all the same thing. If you can figure out who you are and what you do after certain things, then you understand what the future is going to look like. It's predicting your future, it's creating your reality, it's understanding your destiny based on how you act by your actions, your habits, right? So if you can figure that out, it's going to get easier every time you come across a new obstacle because you understand your behaviors, you understand your patterns. And by understanding this, you know how to interact with certain things, you know what to change. Oh, instead of giving myself a large break, I'm gonna give myself a small break. And instead of 2 days, 3 days, I'm gonna give myself 1 day and I'm gonna get back to it because if I know if I do 2, 3 days, I'm gonna end up going a whole week and it's just gonna prolong my ability for success. And the same thing is washing dishes, as I gave that example earlier. Even if it's a small goal, if right after that goal, I'm hopping on my phone, it's like I've spent 10% of my time and my energy in washing those dishes, but I'm spending 80% of my time scrolling through my phone. Okay, that's probably not the proper thing to do. Let me switch it up. And after I wash dishes, maybe I just sit down and breathe and allow myself to relax and be still. And it's the same thing with everything else. Figure out who you are, figure out your patterns, and then find out the best way to approach things based on who you are as an individual. Because you can receive advice from 1,000 people, and all those people might have solid advice to give. But you as an individual are going to perceive and receive that advice differently, and it's going to affect you differently. So you need to figure out who you are as a person. And then, based on the advice that you're receiving, after you know who you are, you will have a better way to use that advice to help you form yourself.